The torch has been passed. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Yeah, that one felt good. Grossi. And today we are going to be breaking down the Green Bay Packers victory over Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers with a score of 35-25. And heading into this game, I mean, let's just be honest, folks. This was a game that I had circled on the schedule as soon as it came out earlier this year. We knew that it was going to be, let's just say, emotional, right? This is the first time that Aaron Rodgers will be playing his old team in the Green Bay Packers to do it on the Steelers, and the Steelers up to this point have had a pretty nice season. Yes, they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, but besides that, they were looking pretty darn good. And heading into tonight, considering how the Packers have been playing, which has been very close with opponents, you just didn't know what Packers team you were going to get, but you knew there was probably going to be a good amount of stress. And after that first half, yeah, it was really darn stressful because it was a tale of two completely different halves. That first half, the Packers could not get anything going on offense. While they were able to get a touchdown in the first quarter, they had two missed field goals from McManus. His first one was a miss from around the mid-50s, and you're like, okay, you can excuse that. McManus, his first game back after missing a couple of weeks. You had Haversick, who was taking over for him in the interim, and he was playing perfectly. McManus misses his first one, and then right before half, Jordan Love is able to lead that offense down the field to try and put up 3 points before the end of the half, and that one sails wide left, and ultimately McManus missed 2 on the night. He was able to make up for it and get a couple of chip shots later on in that game in the second half. But yeah, things were a little bit worrisome considering that Haversick not only played well when McManus was out, but he also set a franchise record with a 61-yard field goal. And so after this game, do the Packers have a kicking problem? I'll say what I said last week. I don't think it's a kicking problem when you have the potential solution on your roster. It makes sense that McManus is going to get the first looks considering how good he has been for the Packers, and he's also carrying that contract. But if you're going to start to see more kicker woes in the future for McManus, I imagine they're just going to put Haversick in. Now, all that being said, on top of the missed field goals, the Packers were going 3 and out constantly in that first half. The offense could not get things going. Josh Jacobs was not having a great time, and it looked like it was going to be tough sledding for that second half. And then, oh boy, did things turn around. And I know there's been a vocal amount of fans who are really anti-Matt LaFleur this season. And again, we talked about this last week. I know expectations are insanely high for the Green Bay Packers. After they made that trade for Micah Parsons, it's like, all right, well, now it's time to put up or shut up. Super Bowl is the expectation now. And when the Packers are in these close contests or barely winning against teams that many think they should be blowing out or at least winning by a larger margin, a whole lot of people get upset. And after this first half, folks were talking about the conservative play calling of Matt LaFleur again. But like I said, once that second half hit, it looked like a completely different team. Jordan Love, holy cow, the day that he had. 20 consecutive completions, which ties Brett Favre all the way back from 2007, nearly 20 years ago. Love had a phenomenal evening. 29 for 37, 360 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 0 sacks. He completed 78% of his passes. By the way, 360 yards is the second most in his career. And there were a few times where he was throwing up prayers. And a guy who answered those prayers was the returning Christian Watson, who had a phenomenal evening. We talked about him coming into this game and how much of a difference maker he can be, because last season when he did play before his injury, that offense statistically was really damn good when he was on the field. And you saw that in his return game tonight. Taking a look on the ground, Emmanuel Wilson went 11 for 61. He was our leading rusher, averaging 5.5 yards per carry. So Wilson has been a nice change of pace back. He's been on the Packers for a few seasons now. And to see him get some of these opportunities and every single time he's running tough, it's nice to see, especially with Marshawn Lloyd, who's going to be out, and who knows what kind of shape he's going to be in when he eventually takes the field. Josh Jacobs went 13 for 33, definitely not his best night. Like I said, they struggled getting him going in the first half. He did wind up scoring a touchdown. The Packers' leading receiver, who set all career highs tonight on National Tight End Day, was Tucker frackin' Kraft. 7 catches, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tucker Kraft had not only a great 4th down catch last week against the Cardinals, he did it again tonight and had all the trust from Jordan Love. He was able to break off a number of runs and ultimately get in the end zone twice. So a superb game for Tucker Kraft, and it was just great to see him ball out tonight. On top of that, we had the rookie wide receiver finally get his first touchdown. And no, we're not talking about Matthew Golden. Sorry, Matthew, that's going to have to wait a little bit longer. Instead, we're talking about Savion Williams, who got his first career touchdown tonight. So a big shout out to the rookie, because that is one he will never forget. And when talking about the defense, again, there's the good with the bad. You look in that first half, and Jaylen Warren was finding a ton of success running the football against the Packers. This number 1 run defense, which has been really darn great and consistent this season, was not looking as good. In the second half, things changed completely as Jaylen Warren was only given 3 carries the entire second half, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense from a game plan standpoint, but I'm not going to complain. You take a look in the first half, Keyshawn Nixon had a tough freaking night. He had a bad defensive pass interference. He gave up a touchdown. On top of that, he muffed a punt. He was pulled immediately from punt returning duties after that, and things were just going rough. However, he was able to bounce back and have a very nice second half. We talked about McManus. He went 2 for 4 tonight as he had a tough first half as well. Quay Walker, I got to shout out him because we have talked about how he's needed to grow these past few seasons as he's gotten ejected a couple of times. He's gotten into some bad scuffles, and on top of that has drawn some penalties. But DK Metcalf freaking stuck his fingers in Quay Walker's eyes. He did not retaliate at all, and that wound up costing the Steelers 15 yards and was a drive killer. And it really felt like after that point, the Steelers offense was pretty demoralized. And speaking of penalties, there were a lot of questionable calls or no calls in this game. You take a look at that offsides, which Micah Parsons definitely jumped early. Aaron Rodgers thought he had a free play, but they were just like, nope, never mind. We're not going to give it to him. That was a bad one. You look at the offensive pass interference. I think you could have called defensive pass interference on that Tucker Kraft one as he runs into Tucker Kraft before running past him. Tucker was able to catch it and run off, but there just seemed to be some questionable calls all night from the refs, which at this point, unfortunately, is a given. You look at what's going around the league with the tush push today or the lack of whistle in that Buccaneers Saints game. Overall, just not a good look, and unfortunately, another case of lack of consistency in the NFL. Rashawn Gary had 2 sacks tonight and was an absolute game changer. While a lot of the focus from the offensive line was, of course, on Micah Parsons, who still was able to get 5 pressures and a sack tonight, Rashawn Gary played really damn well, and on top of that, a returning Devontae Wyatt was a game changer in the middle of that defensive line. You saw a lot of those Jaylen Warren runs. The way they were able to do so well is they were running a lot to the left. They were running on the outside, and that's where they were able to find the bulk of their yardage in the first half. On top of that, you got to shout out Valentine. He had a really good game tonight. As Aaron Rodgers didn't really do too much. 24 for 36, had 2 touchdowns, was sacked 3 times, 2 by Gary, 1 by Parsons. Jaylen Warren mentioned he had a good first half, went 13 for 62, only 3 carries in that second half. Wilson was their leading receiver, 4 for 74 with a touchdown, and Metcalf had 5 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. And like I said, there have been a lot of critics about Matt LaFleur, and my answer to that is, okay, who are you going to replace him with? I think that some of that hate is definitely a little overblown, but you look at that first half and the play calling was not good. Tucker Kraft had a bad drop. The offense couldn't get things going. When Josh Jacobs doesn't get things going, it feels like that offense starts to suffer. Thankfully, Emmanuel Wilson was able to get things going in the second half, which definitely made a difference, but the play calling was so much better in the second half. Everything seemed to be working a lot more efficiently, and the Packers, they looked really damn good. And now for 2 straight weeks in the fourth quarter, they have put up a bunch of points. Not only did they beat the 27 curse by finally getting a win with over 27 points, but on top of that, they were able to close out the game and finally play some complimentary football in that second half, but mostly in the fourth quarter. The defense was playing well, the offense was operating on all cylinders, and Jordan Love had a fantastic evening. And so you got to feel pretty damn good about this Packers team, who now sits at 5-1-1. They are still number 1 in the NFC North, and with the Bears and Vikings losing this week and the Lions on a bye, yeah, it was a pretty great week for the Packers, who are still also number 1 in the NFC. They're going to be taking on the Carolina Panthers next week, followed by the Eagles on Monday Night Football. We'll see if the Panthers are going to be starting Bryce Young next week, because they looked not so great without him today. And of course, that Eagles game is going to be a big one. But as of right now, the Packers playing very well. This was a big win against Aaron Rodgers, who was looking to beat the Packers so he can join that illustrious list of QBs that have beaten all 32 teams. But it is not to be tonight. Jordan Love was the apprentice, but now he just may be the master. But the Packers looking good, could not be happier. And we're on to Carolina. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You know, I saw me at TomGrossiComedy.com, and a big shout out and thank you to all the Patreon and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack, go.